I'm Quentin Angus, and this is Good Company. Each episode I speak to a world leader within the music industry, and today I'm joined by the CEO and founder of PickUp Music, Sam Blakelock. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
For the listeners, the way the show is going to work is I start with some long-form questions and then close it out with some short-form questions. And Sam, I always like to start with something recent, but for you, I'm wondering if you could give the listeners a summary of like where PickUp Music is today, like how many employees, how many members, just give them a sense of the size of the company, and then we'll use the interview to lead back up to this present moment.
Yeah, so great to be here, Quentin, and I've been enjoying your interviews with Cecil and Molly and the other fantastic guitarists. So, as a, person that doesn't play guitar much these days, but thinks about guitar, it's an honor to be here. But yeah, PickUp Music, so we help people learn music, both guitar and bass and soon piano. We have 30,000 students learning with us. And many more across social media more occasionally. We're based here in LA, and I haven't totaled up, the team members recently, but it'll be around 20 of us or so.
Wow. I know that you very recently acquired Till. Is there anything that you want to share about that? Like, were you excited about that platform? What were the decisions that led to that?
Yeah, so Till is a fantastic marketplace for learning music online with one-on-one instruction. Many of our, peers and some of my favorite guitar players teach on Till. And I've been aware of them for a while. They started during the pandemic when, people were learning a lot at home, and it was, a substitute for in-person learning. And for us, there was a lot of synergy because, the PickUp Music approach to learning is long-form asynchronous learning, so large classes that take you months to progress through. We do have a bit of a live component through group lessons, and we give feedback videos to our students. But this, and I think you talked about this maybe with Cecil. There's a component of like real-time music instruction, which is so important for helping people develop. And Till is a great piece of software and platform and marketplace that we're doing that really well. So rather than developing that ourselves and starting from scratch, we thought we'd work with Till and find ways to integrate it into our membership and our platform to complement what we already do. So hopefully giving the best of both, like asynchronous learning, like learn at your own pace. A lot of people love that, but also if you want to, you can book a call with Molly Miller's on there, a bunch of other people on there to get that individual lessons. So yeah, we're hoping to find the best of both. No in-person events so far, but we're trying to explore how the in-person synchronous learning can also complement the asynchronous learning.
Very interesting. Okay, so in a nutshell, it's a modality thing, right? And rather than inventing it yourself, you're sort of integrating that into yours. Yeah.
So a lot of people will learn with a teacher, through one of our classes, like you have the Music Theory Bootcamp, but perhaps have some questions or they want to go a bit deeper. Then the opportunity to have that individual lesson with the instructor to go deeper and to get that more handcrafted learning experience is something that a lot of people want. A lot of people just want to learn on their own time, but sometimes if whenever we learn a skill, if we know we have this lesson with our teacher every week, maybe that motivates us a bit more to do our homework, and a bit of accountability goes a long way, as does like a more personal kind of learning experience.
Let's talk about early Sam. So I know you grew up in New Zealand, but that's basically all I know. Like, where in New Zealand did you grow up? When did you start playing guitar? Like, when did you decide music was going to be your thing? Can you talk about early Sam?
Yeah, grew up in New Zealand. It's probably fairly similar to growing up in Australia, like yourself. Not as hot, perhaps. Yeah, dabbled in music. I felt like I actually started quite late, and I've always felt like, I was catching up with music. I wasn't, like a 12-year-old prodigy or anything. I started taking it seriously towards the end of high school, that's guitar, and started learning to read music and understanding the theory of music and piano and all of those kind of broader skills towards the last 2 years of high school. So I had I felt like I had a lot of catching up to do, and part of why that I think has helped me now is more on the education side, is I understand students who are starting later in life, even though, last 2 years of high school isn't necessarily late, But yeah, from there I was very fortunate, and I like to, whenever I talk about taking years to study music, I think it's something that we should all feel very fortunate with, like just practicing guitar for like 5 hours a day. So I did that in my undergraduate degree in New Zealand, in Christchurch, which is where I studied. Fantastic jazz program with really great teachers, and during that time there was like a lot of like live venues and collaboration, and a real opportunity to develop my craft with a focus on jazz. So yeah, it was really great time. Christchurch had an earthquake a little bit later on, so that disrupted a lot of the live music venues and opportunities for musicians. But it's since developing more, so that's really good to see. But yeah, after that, I was out here in the US doing my master's in New York at the City University of New York, Queens College, Aaron Copland College of Music. They got 3 names. Some really fantastic faculty there, and had the opportunity to learn from some great jazz guitar players. And yeah.
Did you study with Paul Bollenbach? Was he there?
Yeah, Paul Bollenbach was my primary guitar teacher during my master's. I learned a lot from Paul, particularly around technique. And actually I got an opportunity to learn from Paul's teacher for a period, who's this classical teacher who taught at Columbia, Michael Lorimer, I believe. Went up to his apartment, very New York experience, and he's like, he learned from a master classical guitarist. His approach to technique and touch really sat with me, and like the lightness and the more classical technique, and that was probably one of the biggest takeaways, both through learning from the classical teacher, but also Paul Bollenbach, who's a great jazz guitarist himself. Also, was learning with Michael Lorimer. He also taught me that, so that technique side I really enjoyed.
Very interesting. And why did you choose jazz? Like, was there a specific light bulb moment, or like was it the for myself, for example, one of the main reasons I chose jazz was literally the college that I went to, the university I went to at the time, only had classical or jazz. So of course I chose jazz. Like, was it something like that for you, or was it more like a deeper, you got into it before you even started studying it formally?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So yeah, often there's just a classical track or jazz track, and more there's more like modern music and music production and songwriting offered at these institutions and online programs like PickUp Music. Why did I take jazz? I think it was a bit like you, like that was what was offered, and there's this myth, in hindsight, I don't know if it's necessarily correct, but it's like jazz, we like to think jazz is very complex, and if I can learn jazz, I can play everything. I don't necessarily think that's true, because if you keep, learning jazz, then, then you kind of lose sight of other music. A lot of jazz musicians are very broad. And I don't necessarily agree with that now. But I think that was part of it. Another part was that was what is offered. But I think there's a lot of truth in developing technical facility on your instrument and understanding theory and musicianship and how to jam with other musicians. Like jazz is a great genre for that, and it has that in the tradition of classical, it has that kind of curriculum. People are writing curriculum on how to teach jazz. Not that that's necessarily a good thing, making it academic, but it is, formalizes it for people like us and your students to really get good at the instrument.
So one thing before moving on, I wonder if there are, and that the context of this question is Brian Carter, fantastic jazz drummer, and now he's primarily an orchestrator. So he recently orchestrated a Broadway show for George Clooney. He came and did a workshop at our college. And it was really interesting hearing him talk about his life, because essentially he developed all of these skills right from a very young age, like even things like learning violin for 2 years when he was 7 and then giving it up, or getting really into arranging for singers and sending his arrangements to famous singers even though they never responded. Like, he was developing all of these skills that led to his final destination of now he's an orchestrator on Broadway. I'm wondering if... and you spoke a little bit about this, like your experience as a quote-unquote adult learner, helping you in education. But are there any other experiences, like in New Zealand growing up, or maybe like in your formative years, like when you were studying with people like Paul, that you think have specifically equipped you for your current role?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think many of us who are creative often feel like our path is, winding, and we're doing different skills and different jobs and different styles of music. And sometimes, particularly early on, it can feel like there's not a clear direction. But, as I've gotten older, I've realized that these skills do kind of join up. And I feel very fortunate that my job right now does bring together many of the skills. And not just music as well, like my kind of noodling around with software or design or audio production or video. All of that has come together in this job at PickUp Music, and now it's at a really cool stage where I don't have to do 10 things, and I can hire a proper director of photography or a proper video editor, a world-class music producer. So, the people, that our students don't have to deal with my kind of like 3 out of 10, product.
Yep. Amazing. Maybe the next topic can be like careers in music post-college. So I just want to talk about the things that happened in between you starting PickUp Music and you finishing studying. Like, I know you did some playing on a cruise ship. Can you just talk about some of the different work experiences you had before PickUp?
Yep. Yeah, so if you're a college student taking music and you're wondering what to do next, then it's a very good question, and we've all been through that. And there's definitely a lot of more traditional approaches which have been around for a long time, and many of my peers have followed those. Like, there's going into being a teacher in a like a institution like BMCC with you. There's like going into theatre and Broadway. I have a friend, Tim Sellers, who's on kind of like just got better and better at music theatre, moved to Vegas, like built his way up, and now he's on Cirque, the one with the water. So that's a path you can go to. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Really fantastic drummer. So that's another path, like steady work. I would say cruise ship work is kind of like theatre work, but it's like kind of down a level in terms of the musicianship and opportunity and pay. But there is a lot of it. There's all these cruise ships, floating around, and they have musicians on them who, and there's jazz musicians, there's classical musicians, there's, I was in a band that did, a bunch of different things. We'd be on the stage, so we'd have these guest performers fly in to the cruise ship for a week. They'll give us these charts, and, we'd have to learn them, one rehearsal, and then, do a few shows with them. I'm not sure what it's like these days working on a cruise ship, but I felt like maybe when I was on it, this is probably, last cruise ship I did was probably like, mid like 2013 or so. It was kind of this end of the era where there was this old school kind of like handwritten like Big Bang charts, like big personalities with these guest entertainers who might have been like ex-Vegas people, but kind of a taste of like being a session musician and like getting a chart, having to read it, like shedding it real quick, and performing it, and then also performing every night. So I would say cruise ship is a good opportunity. I definitely recommend it. It's a good opportunity to develop your reading and your skills and play every day and get paid. For me, it wasn't the right choice to do it in the long term. I like being on land and, you know, going back to my own bed.
Very cool. So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about building an audience, and where the angle I'm going on with this is in a music business class I teach, I talk about, you know, careers that where you're the employee, right? And you have a specific job to do. And there are plenty of opportunities within the music industry for that, as we were just discussing. But then there's the, you know, more entrepreneurial, create your own career option. And I give examples including PickUp Music. And it seems like the first thing that you need to do is to develop an audience. And that could be online, it could be in person. Another example I give is Jenny Farm, who created the Tone Academy of Music, and she developed like a network of private students at various different schools and after school programs. And then she eventually started her own company, but she had an audience, right? She had like a network of people that believed in her and followed her as she created her own business. So I guess my question for you is, do you think that that is true, that you need an audience before you capitalize on it? And then could you just talk a little bit about, because I know that was the first part of PickUp, right? You developed an audience first, and then you basically figured out what to do with the audience after it was created.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Often the first step is developing an audience, and this is true of many informational products. You know, we like to think music is more than just giving people information, and it is. But when the product itself is like insights and information and a craft, then having an existing audience first, which takes time, and you know, you have to post every day and understand your audience and understand the trends and provide value. That is often the very first step. And there, you know, things have changed. You know, there's TikTok now versus when I came up, it was Instagram. But there is an opportunity for students, like if you're studying at school or you know, you're out of school and thinking about this, to develop an audience without having to put money into, you know, ads, which is what established companies tend to do, and to build that audience organically, and then you know, have people to sell additional value to. But nurturing that audience, building that audience, providing value to them is an important first step. I think a lot of creators and musicians kind of stop there and don't think as deeply about like, what is the thing people are going to pay me for? And you know, we'll just do like an online class, like let me just like dump all my information about topic X or Z. So with PickUp Music, what we focus on now is really developing like detailed long-form educational experiences for people. Like we go very, very deep. I could spend a lot of time talking about that, but I think, yeah.
No, we can definitely get there. So as we transition into talking about PickUp Music, can you talk about just like, because you at a certain point you realized, okay, this is going to be my full-time job. You moved to LA. What were some of the turning points at the early stages of PickUp?
Yeah, so when you're starting to, you know, be your own boss and work for yourself, it's always good to start generating income before you just dive in the deep end. So I had a part-time job and I was working on the side, and once it, you know, felt consistent and stable enough, then I took the leap and just went full-time into it. I was probably working full-time on it in addition to having a part-time job, but I did that first, and then once I was working for myself, like for PickUp Music, then that enabled me to, live where I wanted and live closer to artists, which brought me to LA.
Very nice. You mentioned before about the different skills that you have across a wide variety of different things like video, audio, etc. Do you think that has been a key part of what has made PickUp successful? Because I know quite often you experiment with like different technologies, and you're one of the first people to like try things out. Do you feel like that has like particularly helped with the company?
Yeah, I think a lot of musicians who are doing well wear many hats. Like a lot of the YouTubers who have good audiences and like products they're selling, know how to write a marketing sequence, know how to write a landing page, film themselves, edit the videos, understand social media, might run a few ads. So yeah, over the years I've dabbled in all of those. It's hard to be a 10 out of 10 at everything, but you can probably get to 3 or 5 out of 10 at many of these skills, particularly by using AI these days. You can kind of like speed run understanding a particular part of running your own business. But certainly for me, understanding content, knowing how to create content, edit it, write. I think writing is a very important skill. I wasn't a good writer in college and high school. I hated writing essays, but just writing, clear messages for students, whether that ends up being a script or a landing page or an email, I think it is very important. Of course, AI is helping with that now. Another skill is the software stuff. So, if you're able to poke around, whether it's just WordPress or, customizing your website or even going deeper, playing around with these tools to create, little applications for yourself or things that help, your students or fans of your music to engage with, your music or your teaching. I think that all helps as well. And more it's becoming easier to develop these skills and understand, things, at least on a kind of low level. And you kind of end up building, I think you can do a lot more these days than probably 10 years ago, as a solo musician or a small business.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Interesting. So now you're in LA. It's your full-time job, you're starting to build the business, and then you start hiring people. Could you talk about that experience? Like, I'm assuming you've learned, a lot about how to be a good leader and like perhaps what to do in interviews or all of that. Like, what has it been like building a team and learning to lead them?
Yeah, it's been a learning experience. I didn't study how to hire someone or how to run a business. So it's been really helpful having my co-founder, Cam, who has much more experience in that. So he's supported in that and is helping with the hiring. So definitely recommend, having someone, to collaborate with. It is hard to find people like that, but if you do, then it's a bit like writing music. Like you could write, you could play every instrument, produce the song and sing, or you could work with a singer and a great producer and someone could mix it and master it, and you'll ultimately have a better product. But you might get less of the streaming amount, but maybe you get more streams because it's just a better piece of art. And also, anyway. That aside, yes, hiring and growing and developing team members is challenging. I enjoy it, and I think of it as like a creative challenge. I think building a business is creative in itself. Involves people, dynamics, supporting people, giving clarity, and I've really enjoyed the process of helping the company grow. And I just treat it kind of like, learning music. It's a creative challenge that I can work through.
Mm-hmm. Great. could you talk about, so you mentioned in detail about what your essentially the identity of the company and what you offer and the students that you serve. Did it take a while to land on exactly what the purpose of the company was, or was it reasonably clear, like from the time you started to create the platform?
Yeah, for us, it started broad and then we focused it in. So initially it was like, okay, well, there's this community of musicians, what do they want? So initially we explored ideas like live events, community, online community, like insights into social media, and then also, education, like guitar education. And so we tried many things, and the education component went well. I think because you're providing real meaningful value to people. So then we just focused in on that and started really figuring out the best way to help people learn guitar online, and not just in like bite-sized chunks in long-form curriculum. And then really doubling down on what was working, and then once we figured that out, broadening that approach to different styles of music, of guitar, different levels of music, and now different instruments, including bass and piano.
And do you think that, because for me, when I think about the history of PickUp, like the way that you developed your audience, the audience became bigger because you broadened the audience, right? So you like started specific with, correct me if I'm wrong, like jazz guitar content, and then it sort of expanded to guitar content, and then it expanded to music content, or perhaps like music production as well. So it kept broadening the lens and getting a larger and larger audience. And then it sounds like with the business, after trying a few different areas, you honed in on one thing, did it really well, and then now you're kind of like then again expanding, right? Like now you're adding piano and adding other. Is that first of all, is that correct? Is that a correct thought? And like, do you feel like you're expanding the lens of what's being offered now? That's a focus.
Yeah, that's a good insight, and it definitely didn't feel as clear as you just explained it there. Like it was much messier and probably not as I didn't think that far ahead. But definitely, yeah, the vision was music and musicianship in the organic audience through the PickUp Music account, not just guitar and not just jazz guitar. But it was interesting, like you said, for the actual membership, it was guitar focused. We quickly broadened beyond like jazz and neo soul because that's a fairly small niche. And now, by adding bass and piano, we are in a sense kind of aligning, what the company offers with, their initial Instagram audience. But nowadays, the Instagram is just a small part of how we reach, prospective students and how we engage with people. But hopefully, there's a bunch of piano players there who've been waiting like 10 years at this point and are excited to learn piano with us when we launch it later this year.
Wow, that's awesome. What are some of the key things that you think have helped your company scale to the amount of subscribers that you have and the size that it is? Like, have there been non-musical or education things? Like, did you do market research on your competitors and like try and do something better or something different? Like, what do you think are some of the contributing factors, I guess, outside of the, the product itself?
The company is, and my approach is very product focused. So
okay.
There's a term in software called product-led growth, which is where you make a great product and then through word of mouth and referrals, it grows. So that, I would say, has got us, most of where we are today, but it does only get us so far. So that's where like the marketing piece comes in. And there's two types of marketing. Well, two main ones. There's the organic type, which we developed early on through Instagram, and then there's paid marketing. So for us, getting really good at paid marketing has been an important addition, as well as the product-led focus and the organic marketing. And I'm not great at paid marketing, which is why I'm very fortunate to have a co-founder and team who do enjoy, getting into the Facebook ads algorithm and understanding those changes. And it's a rapidly evolving space around like what creatives hit, the volume of creatives, testing different creatives, keeping pace with trends in marketing, in paid marketing, that is. And that's a really important piece for any business to stay on top of and master, and it definitely has. But if there's one thing I'd say, product, making a really good product goes a long way.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm also interested to hear you say Facebook, because a couple of recent experiences that I've had, like one direct one was I've done a few paid creator programs with Meta, and the most recent one that I did, little cohorts of creators were put together and then paid to create content specifically for Facebook, and they were really pushing Facebook and giving you tons of algorithmic boost. Some people grew from 400 to 50,000 or 100,000 in a couple of weeks because they were giving so much of a push to the content. But then I also was listening to that podcast, A Diary of a CEO with Stephen. So he had, I forget the guest, but it was an entrepreneur, and they were saying that the most powerful thing you could possibly do for your business is to run Facebook ads. And I thought that was really Facebook, and I guess it still is a legitimate thing, right? Is it legitimate because you're also setting up ads on Instagram, or is there a legitimate audience on Facebook that engages in your experience?
Yeah, so you run them through the Meta Ads platform, which includes Instagram and Facebook, and probably you can probably put an ad in some other Facebook applications as well. But yeah, it does include both. And yeah, it is surprising, if you're not on Facebook, that ads on Facebook do work. But yeah, people still use Facebook, and, many of them want to learn music. The age will be a little older perhaps than Instagram and certainly TikTok. But it is an important part of most businesses, whether that's, online, e-commerce or school of rock lessons in your local area.
Interesting. So I do want to talk about AI. Just before I ask you about AI, can you talk about just any technologies that you think are super important for people to use, either when they're first starting out and or whether they're building a robust business like yours? For example, I know you used Kajabi, which I had heard of, but then you transitioned away from that. But are there, any even simple internal organizational things? Do you use Monday.com or just anything at all, any technology that you feel this is great, we love using this?
Here's a few bits of, productivity software that I enjoy. Many of these won't be surprising, but often I've found, broader tools, are better than one broad piece of software is better than 10 individual ones. And in general, my approach and our approach, my co-founder I, is find one generalist piece of software. It's a bit like a guitar. Find one guitar that can do, all of the styles rather than 10 guitars. So for example, Google Docs, those are great, Sheets, that's great. Apple Notes, I love Apple Notes, whether it's a grocery list, to-do list for the day, notes, not a specific tool. A lot of people Notion. But yeah, Apple Notes sync between my computer, my phone. That's fantastic. We're going to talk about AI in a second, but of course, like ChatGPT and Claude in the browser and on my phone, and maybe a bit of Gemini, although I don't use that much personally. Those are really helpful tools and are being more and more integrated into your computer and your other pieces of work. That's fantastic. Let me see. Music production stuff. There's Logic and Ableton. I'm moving towards using Ableton more. It's just a better interface that's better. On the video editing side, many of the people who are much better at video editing than me are using DaVinci these days rather than Premiere Pro. So we haven't yet transitioned, but that's something we're exploring. So definitely recommend DaVinci, although I need to do a deep dive. And you can also get out of that Adobe, subscription ecosystem, which can be quite expensive if you're like a solo, creator or a business. Is there anything else? Yeah, I think that's probably it.
Awesome. And then so AI, there's so many different things that I want to talk about with this, but I guess the first one is, and perhaps you already offered an answer for that, but are there any additional AI platforms or any other AI tools that you've been using other than the ones you mentioned, like Claude and ChatGPT? Are there any other ones you've used that have been good?
Oh, another tool which actually uses machine learning, which is related to AI, is the neural DSP plugins and hardware. So big fan of those, and we've worked with the company and got to know them a little bit. But in terms of like guitar and bass tone, those are great. I also like we have a Benson amplifier from Chris Benson, which is beautiful. I think you might have perhaps used that when you're at the studio here. Yeah. So I like both. They don't brand themselves as AI, but there is machine learning around like the neural capture. There's maths going on there. It's not like circuitry. There's someone knows a lot about maths and algorithms at that company for sure. But in terms of other AI tools, not on the day-to-day. Like the foundational models are doing more and more in terms of what they can do, which is probably makes it hard if you're offering AI solutions, because OpenAI and Claude might eat your lunch. I use them for specific use cases, whether it's stem splitting with Moises, do a bit of that.
Yeah. That's a great one, yeah.
Although Logic does that now as well, and many other.
Really?
The new Logic. So yeah, that's a good one. But usually it would have to be a very specific use case for me to sign up for something like removing a background from a photo. There's an app called Photo Room, which is very good at that. But they'll charge you a subscription, but you might use it, or we might use it like once every 3 months.
Interesting. And then there are other platforms that can do that as well, right? Similar to you mentioning there are doors that like have the same functionality as Moises. I didn't know that, for example. That's very interesting. But yeah, there are definitely other platforms that can do that. And in terms of like the use case for these, I feel like we're in a lucky industry space where I think we'll be one of the last people to be really hardly affected or really badly affected by AI, just because of the nature of the work, right? It's creative, it's not repetitive, even though there is, there is a little bit of repetitiveness. It seems like the use cases are difficult to kind of like take over what we're doing. So I guess the question is, how are you using like the large language models? How are you using those in your business? Is it like troubleshooting tech things, or like what do you use them for?
Yeah, before I get into that, I don't know if you've watched it, but Adam Neely did a really great video about Suno and music generation. Yeah. So yeah, for all your listeners, great video, and he went very deep. Like, I think it's over an hour long. So
Wow.
a very thoughtful and considered like kind of video essay on that. So yeah, music generation, obviously, you know, it's here, and people are making music with prompts, and so, you know, that piece is there. Here's a good point, that the craft of performing live music, you know, that's not going to go away. You know, someone needs to perform the songs, the live experience, so there's that part. Whereas the recorded part of music, making and releasing songs, is being, you know, it's much easier to access. You can make your own songs. And it was funny in that video, many people who use Suno that Adam Neely interviewed said they love listening to their own music, which is funny. Which kind of makes sense, right? Like, it's crafted for them.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Just really quick, what you said about like the live music thing. Have you seen the recent video where they did like an overlay of 2025 and robots in China, and then 2026, and some robots were doing like synchronized dance moves? Have you seen this yet?
I mean, I've seen clips of robots dancing, you know, but tell me more.
Well, yeah. So basically, in China now, they have robots that are so good that they are like, you know, just as good as humans, if not better. Like the way that they move, it's absolutely crazy. So first of all, it's scary because they could use that for an army or whatever. But going back to your point about entertainment, like, it's a little bit weird to watch them doing synchronized dance moves because it's so perfect. First of all, it's not a human, but it's so perfect that it's kind of like, why am I watching this? Like, I don't think I would pay to see that, but I would still pay to see, you know, a human doing some kind of crazy thing, whether it's music or dance. So I think that's definitely an area that's never going to be taken away from AI.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we're wrong. Maybe in 5 years, there's robots that can like rip a solo over giant steps. But, you know, maybe we'll be proven wrong. Let's see.
Yep. Interesting. Do you think AI is going to influence the future of your company, or like the way that you produce your product? Do you see any, like, are you scared about certain outcomes, or are you like hopeful about certain outcomes? Like, what do you think about the future of this technology within music and your company?
Yeah, so I think net positive for us. It's not a big existential risk. And I think that relates to guitar, bass, and piano being mechanical instruments that you need to play with these things here. So it's a very analog hobby, and most of us, you know, users and members are hobbyists. They're not going to school or college, and it's almost a bit against AI in a sense. Because, you know, spending time away from a screen, although, you know, they'll have the PickUp Music app there, one screen, but spending time with a physical instrument that requires practice, I think that's going to become more and more important. Well, I hope so. A bit like going to the gym or going for a run, or, you know, going out for dinner. Maybe more and more we'll start to appreciate those analog experiences. So yeah, that's kind of like the long term. On the short term, it's a lot of productivity boost. We can do more with less. I can dream up an idea. I understand who the user is, and I can blast it out through, you know, these tools. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting applications, and it's really changing, you know, week to week, which is fun.
There's one thing that I really wanted to touch on is we've talked a lot about you know, your success and all of these cool things that you're doing, but I know that there have been, you know, many trials and tribulations. Like, for example, there was an app that I believe you started, and yeah, long story short, it didn't it didn't work out. But can you just speak a little bit about that, about, you know, having experiences or business ideas or whatever that don't work, and then like just having the drive to continue? Do you have any advice for people with with that? Like, I guess how to deal with failure and keeping on going.
Yeah, the best advice is to fail fast. But there's kind of this area between, you want to give something enough of a go. Like, you don't want to give it a go for, a day or a week or 2 weeks. And then, maybe you didn't really try before you failed. So it's about building an intuition of spending a good amount of time on a given thing, giving it your best shot, going all out, but failing fast in terms of finding the answer about that, piece of work that you created. And sometimes, you need to keep failing again and again and again to find the real answer. But my approach now is to keep trying new things, because you need to get, reps, and not everything is going to be a success. You do need to fail, at least 50% of the time to find those winners. It's more about going on to the next thing, making sure you really see the idea through. So it didn't fail because you didn't see it through or you didn't give it your all. Because an answer of, hey, this didn't work, that's valuable to you. You can focus on something else. And I think the last thing I'll say is and we touched on this when we talked about studying music, or I did, is the privilege to study music, at college, I think, and to fail, at a recital, or, even just study music for 4 years and decide to do something else. Just the opportunity to practice music for many hours a day and weeks and years, I think is not a privilege everybody has. So I've definitely been fortunate in that. And many people that are musicians also have the opportunity to try something out, try and make a living making music, which is a bit crazy. So that certainly helps as well, is having that support or good fortune to fail. That is certainly helpful.
Fantastic. All right, so let's do the rapid fire questions. I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions and just say the first thing that comes to mind. All right, we're going to start with guitar players. So who is your favorite jazz guitar player?
Grant Green is my favorite jazz guitar player. Just fantastic lines, very easy to play, beautiful to transcribe, fits on the fingers.
And who's your favorite non-jazz guitar player?
Two all-time non-jazz favorite guitarists is Mario from Chon, and then also Tim Henson from Polyphia.
Yeah, very good choices. Okay. In terms of your business, what was the hardest year and what was the best year?
Yeah, I'll give you a roundabout answer. Yeah, every year has hard bits and good bits, and yeah, it's the balance between doing something really hard and finding the reward and getting through the hard things. So I'd say every year is a blend of both, but ultimately each year has been rewarding.
And of all of the people that you have worked with, whether they're full-time employees or part-time or famous artists, what is one thing that you've found in common of successful people that you've worked with?
I'll give you two. First, being good at your craft, so the work that you do is excellent, and then secondly, you're enjoyable to work with, so you contribute to the culture, the vibe. So having both those things, I think every talented artist or team member or a successful person has both.
Awesome. All right. And then finally, to close it out, what is one piece of advice that you would give to, like 19-year-old Sam or to younger generations? What do you think they should know that they don't?
Success is based on being lucky, being fortunate, and trying really hard. So, I try not to, give too much advice because, at the end of the day, there's a lot of luck.
Very true. Yeah, people often don't talk about that. Amazing. All right. Thank you, Sam. You've been listening to Good Company. We sat down with Sam Blakelock, the CEO and founder of PickUp Music, and I will see you next time. Thank you for listening.